John, we're back to talk about really surprising situation of U.S. military training foreign nationals, specifically Saudi Arabian airmen. How are you today, John?
I'm well. How are you, Jason?
I'm very well. Working on just dialing in all of the aspects of the new audio setup, the higher quality 1080p, increased bit rate. I must say, you look extremely sharp and good. I think people are enjoying the new higher quality presentations here on Crowdsource the Truth. What have you put together for us today, John?
Well, right after the show last week, we had a show a week ago today on Friday. And I think immediately after on Saturday, Attorney General Barr came out and said the action in Pensacola that we had been talking about was in fact terrorism. So what we're going to talk about today are some of the findings. Now, I was hoping to put out a Pensacola-based video last weekend, and we talked about that on the show last week. But when Attorney General Barr came out and said this is terrorism, and then specific actions came out after this, I dug in deeper. Mm-hmm. And as I'm putting this video together, I'm getting more and more information, and more information, and the video is just getting longer and longer. And, you know, I'm not going to put out an hour and 45-minute epic, type film. So I'm trying to edit it down. But there's so much new information that has come out since last week as a result of digging in, right? So the first thing that happened was Attorney General Barr came out, spoke in front of the public, and I've got a clip of that in the video that will be coming out this weekend for sure. And the gist of it is they're calling it terrorism, but they're also following a very similar theme that we've seen before. And if you want to play the clip, I see you've got it up there. If you want to play 30 seconds or something where he says, this was an act of terror.
I'm not
maybe pull
ready to do that, and I don't want to hunt around for it, but people can watch the press conference if they haven't seen it. Let's see. We got a whole lot going on with the audio over here that's not quite yet dialed in. I don't know if this is going to play reliably or what, but...
Oh, okay. I thought you meant my audio, because everybody complains it's too bassy.
Yeah, I mean, I've made some major updates over here in order to be able to support this higher bit rate and a 32-bit audio pipeline, and I'm learning things about it each day, so hopefully it'll be even better next week. But we're looking at a clip right here. This is the Washington Examiner, and people can look up the FBI DOJ press conference about the Pensacola shooting. The thing that stood out to me most, John, wasn't so much that Barr called it terrorism. I mean, that, yeah, maybe it is. We could get into the semantics of what is or is not terrorism versus a straight crime. It was that he was so focused on how important the relationship with the Saudi kingdom is and how Apple Computer needs to grant the Department of Justice the ability to crack this encryption that protects our personal information and prevents a potentially tyrannical and overreaching Department of Justice from just grabbing all of our data.
Yeah. No, all of that happened in the press conference. You're absolutely right. There's a number of issues here. And as a result of this, I started investigating further. And this was a set of rabbit holes that is fascinating and tragic. So there are some new names that are going to get added to the book of this event, so to speak, in history. And some of these names are tragic. Some of these names are bigger than life. And it's all new. New to me. I think new to the investigative community. These are not names that I have seen in anybody else's videos. I haven't seen anybody talk about any of these folks. So I think that what we have in store for our patrons this evening is rather unique.
Right. and we're going to be starting our sponsor exclusive show, John Cullen's Las Vegas Investigation, in just about 25 minutes. That's going to be on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And people can also choose Subscribestar for either of us, subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And is it also subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, John?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people have been telling me that they're enjoying Subscribestar. I think it's kind of a leaner interface. It's not really doing so many things. It's just basically delivering you the video. So some people have preferred Subscribestar. It's a little bit more of the mom and pop shop version of a subscription management type website. So if anybody's had any technical problems or ideological problems with Patreon, Subscribestar is a great alternative. I also want to let people know, if you're watching us on the Crowdsource the Truth 2 YouTube channel, that's the backup YouTube channel for Crowdsource the Truth. Normally the videos are going out on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel. Of course, malicious social engineers are frequently attacking that channel, so we've been live streaming to Crowdsource the Truth 2, and then having YouTube premieres right after that on the Jason Goodman channel. For all of my shows with John, you can also enjoy a simulcast on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. That's a great place to go if you have not yet had an opportunity to dig into John's research. The overall premise of which, of course, is that the Saudi Arabian National Guard was the primary culprit in the Las Vegas shooting. They're trained. Where do they train, John? They're training at Nellis or no MD helicopters. What's the deal with the SANG?
Well, so it's a good question. It turns out this is the connection between Pensacola and the Las Vegas shooting.
Wow.
If in fact the Las Vegas shooting was in fact perpetrated by the SANG, as the hypothesis states, right? And again, I could be wrong. So if anybody has a better hypothesis that's better researched, I'd love to see it. So the net of it is we have this connection, which is that we are training both Saudi Arabian National Guard and Saudi Air Force aviators, both in Saudi Arabia and in the United States. And this is what led potentially to the tragedy in Las Vegas, was the fact that these guys were here and that their aircraft were here and that they were training here. And so I tried to call attention to this 2 years ago. And I said, how did this happen? And the answer, it was a rhetorical question, excuse me. The answer was that we invited them here. These guys have been invited to come to the United States to train. And it's something that Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense, talks about. And I'm highlighting that in the video that's coming out this weekend. And he talks about the value or the importance to national security of training these guys here and imparting American values and the American experience to these guys.
Seems ridiculous,
So
John.
that seems to, well, these are Mark Esper's words. I mean, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but we'll take a look at the footage.
Right. And for people who are not immediately familiar with the name Mark Esper, he's the current Secretary of Defense under President Donald Trump. Isn't he potentially a witness in the impeachment? What do we know about Mark Esper? Is he on the level, or is he another deep state swamp rat?
Again, I just know what I hear him saying about this particular topic, and I disagree with him vehemently.
Yeah.
And I think that he's not in touch with what the American people are thinking and feeling. I think there's a big disconnect.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. These secretaries.
I think that the perspective that there's national security value in training our Middle East allies here in America. And by the way, it's not just Saudis, it's any other Middle Eastern ally. So it's Jordanians, it's potentially Egyptians, obviously Israelis. We're training everybody. So there's
Yeah.
something like 5,000 foreign military folks in the United States training. Of
I don't
those
like that at
5,000,
all.
about 800. That's my point, is Mr. Esper, I think the American people disagree with these policies. And I'm not sure who's setting these policies, but I really don't think it's the American voter.
Right.
And if he's the Secretary of Defense, unless I'm wrong, I believe he works for the American voter. Am I wrong?
Right. No, I think that's correct. You know,
Okay.
the other thing I would say,
Right.
John, we've got all these, you know, so even if we're talking about, so someone's bringing up here that Israel is the author of 9/11. I mean, that's, I don't know if I agree with friends. Obviously, we've seen that there were Israeli individuals, people with business alliances, and possibly even citizenship of Israel, as well as these guys who were caught dancing in a van in New Jersey. I mean, these to me seem very much like social engineering elements that are planted there to entice people like Franz Fanon to make a comment like that. Any number of deceptions that we could talk about surround 9/11,
Well,
but
sure. I
whether
mean,
we're talking about
Israel's,
Saudi, hang on,
yeah.
whether
You
we're
want to talk
talking
about
about Saudi,
Israel?
stop, whether we're
Yeah.
talking about Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia or Israel or France or anybody, even if they're allies, I don't want their military training in this country, because someone who is a
Right.
citizen of a foreign nation is and should be expected to be dedicated to the service of that nation. If somebody wants to leave Israel, leave Saudi Arabia, leave France, leave Germany, leave Mexico, move to the United States and dedicate their life to being a U.S. citizen, that's a different story. But I don't like this idea of any foreign military being trained in the United States.
Well, it gets worse, right? So as we dig in and find out the extent of this,
Yeah.
it's just, it's the sort of thing that, you know, I've got children in universities that are near Air Force bases, right?
Yeah.
And these things crash all the time. You want to look up F-15 crash? Man, there's an F-15 crash in what was it, Riverside, California? Went
Yeah.
right through the roof of a warehouse. So this is dangerous business in the first place, right?
Right.
Flying these jets, flying these helicopters, it's very dangerous business. Everybody who does it knows it. These are professional aviators and they're warriors. So they're both aviators and they're in the process of killing people or supporting the process of war. And it's dangerous stuff, and guys get killed, and guys get killed during training missions. And one of the things that we're going to talk about when we get to the Patreon and Subscribestar segment is a U.S. Army aviator that was killed in Saudi Arabia during an aviation accident training a Sang pilot. So even when we train them over there, it's dangerous business, and guys are losing their lives, right? So if we're going to train them in the United States
Mm.
and then we give them hunting licenses, and
That,
then with a hunting
yeah.
license you can buy a Glock,
No.
just goes to show that the government is run by committee.
Yeah.
Right? The government is run by committee. The fact that you can
Loopholes.
be that you can get a hunting license, and then with a hunting license you can go buy a Glock as a foreigner is absurd. You could never do that in Saudi Arabia.
No.
You as an American fly to Saudi Arabia, get a hunting license, and then go get a pistol in Riyadh? What, are you kidding?
No.
That's not going to happen. So
Shouldn't
how
do
does
it.
that happen in America? How does that happen in America?
Yeah.
That's okay.
John,
And there are 830 more Saudis that are still here training. 21 were sent home. That's what we're going to talk about at the bottom of the hour.
yeah, and we've got Dave Cohen telling us that Israel works for United States companies and that we have American bases all over Israel. I acknowledge that. I'm just
Sure.
saying, I don't like this idea. Call me an isolationist. I would prefer to be concerned about the United States and U.S. military and have probably a lot more barriers between business transactions and military weapons sales, technology. I mean, the problem is when you drill down to it, it's become a complicated world. I mean, you know, the same computer that you might use to go onto YouTube could be used to hack a power plant or whatever. So at what point are we doing business with an enemy? And at what point do we stop that? Towards what you're saying about this stuff being dangerous, John, even civilian aviation is very dangerous. I'm sure people heard about this Delta jet that took off out of LAX and right away was having a compressor problem with one of its engines, needed to turn around and land. I don't know if everyone's aware that the takeoff weight of a jet is generally much greater than what it's rated to land at. So in order to do that kind of landing right away, the jet needs to dump tons of fuel. And this jet over LAX, it dumped fuel over a school, and children were hit with jet fuel. So, I mean, this is toxic, this is dangerous, very scary and traumatic for the children. I don't know that this type of thing exactly has ever happened before, but it just continues to raise the question of, you know, technology and how it's got benefits, it's got hazards, and do we want this type of military technology so close to civilians when we see civilian technology creates problems of its own?
Well, as we drill in at the bottom of the hour, you're going to see a pattern of behavior of law breaking by visiting Saudi citizens that are then bailed out by the embassy and gone. It just keeps happening again and again. Yeah. And in this case, in Pensacola, what we're being told is this is a single shooter, no conspiracy. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yes. It sounds like everything we're ever told.
Single shooter, no conspiracy.
Yeah.
We're going to send 21 guys back to Saudi Arabia, where God knows what's going to happen to them. But 21 guys are being sent back of the 800, I think it's 852 that are here at the moment. Now, when they say Saudi military trainees, does that include the Saudi Arabian National Guard? Because Saudi Arabian National Guard is a separate operation, right? So I don't know the answer to these things.
So who was it that was at that Pensacola base? That was not the Saudi Arabian National Guard. That was the Saudi Air Force. Who was that?
Saudi Air Force. And we'll take a look at that at the bottom of the hour. We'll look at his ID, and we're really going to drill in. There's so much material to go through that this show is going to be tough to squeeze into an hour.
Okay. Well, let's get ready to get over there. We're going to be starting in just about 10 minutes. Jen 2020 is asking from Periscope. For some reason, I'm having a difficult time getting into the comments on Periscope, but she's asking about this person who was swatted. We're planning an interview for tomorrow. I'm still working on connecting with that person, but yeah, the YouTuber who was swatted. You've spoken about people being swatted. A friend of my parents, a woman in her 70s, was swatted at her house in Florida. I mean, this is like a lady who's going to the supermarket and kind of like hanging out, I guess, playing mahjong or something and getting swatted. So it's surprising to me that the SWAT teams will just go over to anybody's house based on a phone call without first doing some reconnaissance or something like that. But perhaps for another show. John, we'll see you in just 10 minutes on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. If you're not already a sponsor, take the next 10 minutes to go over there, sign up, join us. You're going to get access to a huge and growing library of sponsor-exclusive videos that contain some of the most explosive information that we deal with. And we'll see everybody there in 10 minutes. Thanks for watching.